Hi everyone, let's talk about Bitcoin in this video. Imagine a scenario that you're in India and you want to buy a candy from Russia. Now, how can you trust this person who is selling you this candy? Let's take another scenario where it's your birthday and you go to the cake shop and exchange a cake with some paper notes. Now, how do you know that these paper notes have some value? The function of decreasing the trust between two parties in the previous case where you were buying the candy, and in this case where you're exchanging some goods with some paper currency and maintaining the value of that paper currency is performed by a third party or a central party, that is the government. Now, there are lots of problems with a centralized currency or a currency that is controlled by a third party, that is the government. The first is that it is prone to inflation, so the government can decide to print more money on a day and the value per unit currency decreases. The second one is that the value is regulated highly by the government, so they can decide to stop some particular denomination of the currency without any notice. The third one is that the transactions are not public, so all the transaction that happens between people who have that currency cannot be seen by other people. To solve all these problems, there was a piece of software that was created by someone called Satoshi Nakamoto. It could be a single person or could be a group of people, and they wrote this Bitcoin code, and we will talk about how it works and how it solves these problems. The whole of Bitcoin architecture is based on an algorithm that is called Secure Hashing Algorithm 256. This is one of the algorithms that is used to encrypt things in Bitcoin, and this is a highly secure network and one can't really find out what the encrypted data is unless they have a key. So let's take an example of me trying to encrypt my name. So what I've done here is I have just used some Python code, and you can see that there is a string of all these letters, and this is the encrypted code that has come out of my name. Now, the name string or the letters in the name can be any number, but the output that comes out of this function in terms of this encryption text is always of the same length. You can see that I've written a very long line here, and this is an example string. See that I can write anything here, but the output length will always be the same. I can write any string here, I can write any number of letters here. It will always give me an output of a fixed number of letters when it is encrypted, and that's the power of the SHA-256 algorithm. The output that comes out when we put an input into this function is called a hash. Keep that in mind. Next, what is a blockchain? A blockchain is technically a receipt. It contains data of transactions of this Bitcoin currency, and it is distributed, and we will talk about what distributed means later on in this video. What is a block? A block is a single entity in a blockchain, and all these blocks form a blockchain. A block is composed of data of either a single transaction between two parties or multiple transactions between different parties. For example, one block can contain this data of Ashish sending 3 bitcoins to Laura, Paul sending 1 bitcoin to Jay, and Ashley sending 8 bitcoins to Priyanka. When we come back to blockchains, a blockchain is a combination of all these blocks that contain transaction data. What is the meaning of being distributed? So if I start my own Bitcoin network from scratch, what I will do, I'll go to my friends and I will ask them to become nodes. And a node is a computer that can run the Bitcoin software on it. So if I have many friends who agree to this, I will give them a copy of this transaction data, which is technically the blockchain, and now they will become a node or a part of this network. So how does a transaction occur on this Bitcoin network? Let's say that I spend 1 Bitcoin to buy coffee from Sid. Now this transaction data will be sent to all the nodes in the Bitcoin network, and these nodes are technically all the computers that are running the Bitcoin software. Who is the third party who looks at all these transactions? The third party is the group of people who are running the Bitcoin software, or my friends who are the nodes in this network. This transaction data is added to a common area that is called a meme pool, and all the nodes or the computers who are running the Bitcoin software can see this transaction data. Let's talk about proof of work. Now, what is proof of work? The nodes that are in this network, they will compete to confirm whether this transaction is valid or not. And in order to tell whether a transaction is valid or not, they'll have to use their computation power and they'll have to solve a mathematical question. Now, this can be an example of the question that a computer or a node in the network needs to solve in order to verify this transaction. So the question is, calculate the solution hash of all the data, that is, Ashish sends 1 Bitcoin to Sid, by manipulating the nonce, and find the nonce required to reach the hash beginning with the given difficulty. And the difficulty here is 4. Now, what is difficulty? The difficulty is the number of zeros in front of this solution hash. So you can see that the hash that we need to find should have 4 zeros in the front, and this number 4 is the difficulty. Now, what is nonce? Nonce is just a random number, so the computer will start with 0. It will take it as nonce. It will add this 0 to all the data, then it will pass everything to the SHA-256 algorithm, and this algorithm will generate a hash. Now, you need to find a hash that has 4 zeros in the front. So if 0 as a nonce do not give the output of a hash that has 4 zeros in the front, that nonce is not the right nonce. So the computer will increase the nonce from 0 to 1, then repeat the process again, and it will keep doing this till it finds a solution hash that has 4 zeros in the front, and these 4 zeros is the difficulty. Now, what is mining? Mining is the process of finding the solution hash, and a computer does that by finding a nonce that, when added to the data and passed to the SHA-256 algorithm, returns a hash that has 4 zeros in the front. Once a block is mined, or in easy words, the transaction is deemed valid, this nonce is spread to all the other nodes, and they verify whether this nonce is right or not, and whether the computer has found the solution hash or not. And this is not very computationally expensive, because now they don't have to calculate the nonce. The nonce is already calculated. They just have to add it with the data, pass it to the SHA-256 algorithm, and see whether the solution hash has 4 zeros in the front or not. And once verified, this block can be added to the blockchain. Why is it called a chain? This is because the data that is used to mine a block contains the hash of the previous block, plus the transaction data, the nonce, the difficulty, and lots of other variables. I lied in the previous slides because I wanted to make things easier for you. So it contains the data of people sending money to each other, but apart from that, it contains lots of other variables as well. Because all the hashes are dependent on the hash of the previous blocks, if you tamper the data of even a single block, whole of the subsequent blocks are deemed invalid and this blockchain fails. So that is why this is so secure, and that is why it is called a blockchain. Now, why will someone mine or become a node in this network? This is because the node computer that calculates the solution first gets rewarded with Bitcoin. Also, they receive the involved transaction fee. What happens after a block is added to a blockchain? The blockchain is distributed to all other nodes in the network, and this leads to everyone having the same copy of the blockchain, and that's how the Bitcoin network works.